Okay, looks like everything is live here. Let's just take a look really fast. Looks like live stream set up and looks like we've got 4 people on already. Good morning, everyone. Sorry for being a moment late. I didn't know the live stream was kicking off. So, as always, welcome to the channel and thanks for stopping by, everyone. My name is Rich Charpentier, and today we're going to have an interesting topic. We're going to be talking about doing drone flights for clients in remote locations. And I've got a remote location up on screen. But before we get going on this, I just wanted to let everyone know. So I know that the time change has occurred, and during the fall, it's fall back. But here in Arizona, we're special, so we don't do that. During the summertime, we're on Pacific Standard Time. So when we do these live streams, it's at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And during the fall, during the winter months as well, we're only 2 hours different. So now we're on Mountain Standard Time, so 8 a.m. for me. So sorry if that messed anybody up. I forgot to put a notification up that, hey, we don't change our clocks here. But yeah, so there you go. I realized it this morning. I said, oh, wait a minute. So I texted my sister on the East Coast and I said, what time is it there? So normally during the summer, when I call them, it's 3 hours time difference. But now it's only 2 hours time difference. So there you go. So today we're going to talk a little bit about doing remote locations because we've been doing a lot of remote locations lately. We've had some interesting requests for locations. And I've done a lot of remote locations in Arizona, not just, not for drone flight. I've done a lot of photography and travel over the years in the state of Arizona, enjoying some of these really rarely seen places. So before we get into the safety and everything and talking about clients, I wanted to show you a couple of the locations that I've loved over the years. And so I just decided to pull those up on Lightroom. And I've got a library of some of my favorite things there. And we're going to go full screen here. So this location is called White Pocket. It's up near the Arizona and Utah borders. It is near Coyote Buttes National Monument. You might know the Wave, which is one of those amazing sandstone formations that so many people have taken photos of. Years ago, I started going to White Pocket very regularly. And it's an extremely long ride into this location. You have to drive over washboard roads. You have to drive over dirt roads. You get buried in some sand dunes. You have to deflate your truck tires to get in. So we would actually go in there and camp and tent. And this has become a much more popular area. And you might be thinking to yourself, you've seen these images before, not just on my channel. And you would be correct. If you're into drone flight and you've watched a lot of the DJI drone videos, when they announce new products, you most likely have seen White Pocket. So White Pocket is on Bureau Land Management land. It's in the middle of nowhere in the desert. It's close to the Vermilion Cliffs National Monument. And we do have some national monument areas in that area, like Coyote Buttes, for instance, where we shouldn't be flying our drones. But White Pocket is actually an area where there aren't restrictions, even though it's so close to Coyote Buttes, but it's not treated as the national monument is treated. Getting into this place is something else. It's a harrowing drive. It takes a couple hours to get in from the time you leave pavement. There are some tour groups up there that will take people out. It's one of the most spectacular things I've ever seen in my life. And let's go ahead and arrow over. Now, this is just an example of another truly remote location. No cell phone coverage there. We didn't have data, and we did have some interesting photo opportunities. But if you had an emergency situation or you needed aid or anything, you're not getting it. By the way, when I take a look over onto the right-hand side, I'm just checking to see if anyone's dropped any notes or anything yet in the live chat, which you're welcome to do. You're also welcome to leave questions and comments down below in the comment section if you'd like to. So let's move along to the next one. So like I said, remote locations. Here we are back at White Pocket again. This particular photo took me years to take because it was never lit well. It's not a morning shot. It's not an evening shot. It breaks some of those landscape rules. But I'm very proud of this image that we shot years ago in there because I actually got this particular formation lit in a way I wanted to. We also did some pretty amazing model shoots out there. So we actually brought a model out with us, and we were in massive winds. Jody was actually struggling to hang on to one of our giant soft boxes and portable strobes. It was quite a day. All right, let's move along to the next one here. So everyone thinks of the Grand Canyon, and let's see, Ray, otherworldly images like this, well worth the journey. That's orange juice worth squeezing. Absolutely, Ray. It's an amazing place. Actually, Arizona, one of the reasons I fell in love with this place was the rock formations and the scenery and the giant open skies and monsoon season. All these things really are inspiring, especially if you're running around with a camera. You don't have to be a pro or anything. You just need to go out and have some fun and see what you can capture. So this is at the north rim of the Grand Canyon. So the south rim of the Grand Canyon sees so many visitors every day, but the north rim is a totally different story. It takes hours longer to get up to the north rim. It's not open during the winter. The main road from Jacob Lake is completely closed down. They don't plow it. When I was there in August years back, the elevation difference is amazing with the south rim as well. And so in August, I was seeing temperatures in the 30-degree Fahrenheit range in the evenings and only 70-degree Fahrenheit during the afternoons. And this is in August, so that elevation makes a big deal. I was literally out at this point with no other tourists coming in. So this was a lot of off-roading to get in here. Went through a tiny little controlled burn area that Forest Service people were out at, and they let me pass through. So it's just, it's different than the South Rim. You're very remote. You're on your own. You don't have cell coverage. So when you get out into these places, you need to watch yourself and play it safe. And sometimes some of the tracks in here are only 2-lane tracks to get in. Let's arrow over to the next one. Another one in White Pocket. Yes, I'm a White Pocket fanatic. What can I tell you? And this is actually a view that was very similar to one of the DJI videos that I saw where they were clearly flying through White Pocket. And I said, wow, it's gotten that well known, and it really has. There is a dirt road going into here called House Rock Valley Road. And at the Arizona-Utah state line border, there is a little campground. So you can actually get in there and go tenting and up to 14 days. And that place is super remote too. And a couple of years ago, I sent some friends out there who reported in middle of nowhere, no people out there, and they had cell coverage. So because of the popularity of Coyote Buttes, more and more people are going in there, so they actually got some cell coverage in there. Still in White Pocket, everything that I've heard, there's still no communications. So that's why one of the things that we carry with us, this is my Yaesu FT70D. So not only can I monitor air traffic control, by the way, I'm not selling you this. Not only can I monitor ATC traffic here in Prescott, because I can listen in with this one. This is a ham radio, and I am a ham radio operator. I got my ticket years ago. I was only in my 20s when I was working in telecom, and one of the engineers I worked with said, hey, if you want to know what those radio frequency guys are doing and how they're planning stuff for the towers, you should get your ham radio license. So I'm November 1 Zulu Foxtrot. And I have a bigger radio in the truck so that when we do go out to locations like this, I always still have 2-meter repeater access. So if we have any emergency situations or anything, I can actually make a call out with emergency traffic and we can get assistance. So I always have the little handheld with me, not as powerful as the big one in the truck. And when we go into the Vermilion Cliffs National Monument, there are a couple of repeaters that I can actually contact with the radio. So, we still have that extra level of security. So I'm not saying run out and get your amateur radio license, but it's not a bad thing. It's pretty interesting. And if you can pass the Part 107 test, I think you can study and pass the FCC's test for your amateur radio license. So very handy, especially emergency situations. Whoops, I want to go back. I accidentally seem to have swiped backwards. So let's go back here to this one because this is a favorite. So this is Cottonwood Canyon Road. This is a dirt road that runs from 89 in Arizona all the way up to Kodachrome Basin. So it's like 50-something miles of some pretty crazy off-roading, and in some spots, it's pretty hazardous. I've actually turned around on this road more than one occasion, and you've always got to be careful for flash flooding and things. So this area is referred to as Candyland. Oh, thanks, Ray. I'm glad you like them. Um, I was a co-owner of a gallery for years, so I did a lot of very strange places and got heavy into ghost towns too, which is another place that you want emergency communications. So Candyland in here, there's actually some amazing slot canyons in here. You can spend days and days. You can do the drive up this road, get yourself all the way up to Kodachrome Basin, and I think it's Route 12 in Utah, and see some more amazing stuff. So this is part of the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument, and I think things are changing with that right now. But the sandstone formations are insane. So here we go, another location with some Joshua trees. This is actually to the north of Wickenburg, Arizona. We did have communications here, but still it's a remote location when you go walking off the highway for sure. And here we are in White Pocket again. Yeah, I know it's the White Pocket show. But what can I tell you? I mean, when you see something like this, it's absolutely incredible. So let's arrow over. So this is also on Cottonwood Canyon Road. Old buddy of mine, Tom, getting ready to take some photos. You see the Nissan Titan sitting here. So this is a 4-wheel drive truck. I actually carry a generator with me at all times. I also have a air compressor and a setup to deflate the tires when we get into the sand dune areas, and then to reinflate the tires when we're going back out to the rest of the world. This area has become more popular in recent years as well, but I know that a lot of people get stuck in these places. They need a tow out. The tow truck services to get out of these places are incredible. So don't go taking a regular rental car in if you're visiting the US, because that's what happens a lot here. We get a lot of tourists from overseas. They want to see these places, and they go driving in a little rental car. We actually helped dig out a couple of German tourists a few years ago. We had our sand ladders with us. We watched them get buried into a sand dune. So we spent over an hour out helping dig them out and getting them turned around. All right, let's go into the next one. So this is another one of the slot canyons in the Grand Staircase Escalante. Once again, slot canyon is very dangerous during monsoon season. The floods can happen quickly. So you've got to be really aware when you're doing these remote locations. And yes, this does apply to the job stuff we're going to talk about in a minute. Sorry, Rich, I must say, 20s. Haven't used a CB radio since the 80s. Oh, no worries, no worries. But my buddy, Paul Finnegan, that was his name. He was a network design engineer when I first started into telecom. And I was a junior network design engineer learning from him. And he'd had his ham radio license forever. And it really did teach me a lot about what was happening in cellular and digital PCS. So, you know, when I talked to the radio frequency guys who were planning that side of things, I actually understood what they were talking about. So it was worth my time and effort. I'd say it took 2 weeks to study for it. But most anywhere in the country, I can usually find a repeater for emergency aid. So that's fantastic. All right, let's arrow over. So another view in Candyland. I just really like the dried out mud cracks in here. And by the way, you can see there are some power lines up there. It's one thing that I didn't like in the area, but they do have the power lines running along. This is another entrance to another extremely remote area up near the Grand Staircase once again. And just wanted to show people we're in the middle of nowhere, and these washboard roads will shake the screws out of everything. All right, let's pop over to the next one here. This is going into the Perea. There is an old movie set. Well, there was an old movie set that burned down, got rebuilt, got burned down. Very long story. Several years ago on this YouTube channel, I did provide a couple of flights from this location. The drive down into this area is spooky as all get out. At one point, you have a massive drop off on one side, and the road is barely fitting the Nissan Titan. So it's a little harrowing to get down in there. And you definitely want to have some kind of all-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, high clearance. And with some of my recent client locations, the same can be said. One more from inside a White Pocket, the sand dunes after an afternoon of me and a bunch of friends trudging back and forth, setting up our tents and just catching one of those awesome Arizona sunsets. All right, let's pop over. And this is Hackberry Canyon, another favorite. This you can actually make a multi-day hike out of this. Park your car down at one side, park a friend's car on the north side, and you do have to be aware of flooding in here. I actually saw a video recently from a gentleman who did a hike in Hackberry and who got stranded for a little bit with some major flash flooding. So his video scared me. And this is looking north, Kodachrome Basin. Look that up. That's another famous location in Utah for some incredible rock formations. And I think that's it on this slideshow. Yes, it is. So we can go ahead and close this one down. And this leads me into, boy, we just had a lot of fun looking at some cool images. But this leads me into one of the jobs that we did last week. Like I said, we've been getting more regular calls for doing raw land sites, for potential building, for people thinking about buying. And so we've been taking some longer trips. Last week, 2-hour drive north of Williams, the town/city of Williams proper. You start driving north from Williams and you're headed to the Grand Canyon. You're also headed into some pretty open high desert. So think of high plains drifters. One thing we noted when we went out a few weeks ago for this client was that there were some wind farms off in the distance. So the giant windmills, so that blew my mind. And I'm just going to play this in the background while we're talking. So let's go down here and see, is this going to play or not? There it goes. So while we were doing our shoot last week, Jody hung out the window here and there with a GoPro on a gimbal, just to show, yeah, this is a really remote location. So we had to drive north on Route 64, and then we had to turn off into just an open desert area. It had some signage, so someone's looking to build this into a community. But right now, it's a lot of open lots that are, 40 acres, 60 acres, so huge ranch opportunities. And there's Jody switching the camera view and tipping us around a little bit. But so I wanted to show, what it feels like going out into some of these remote locations. There's possibilities that you're not going to have cell signal, so you might have some issues with your controller connecting up to the net. So anything that you can offload or make sure that the base maps are downloaded to your devices is extremely important. You don't want to get out to these locations and find out that you need internet access and you have none whatsoever. So this is just part of our ride in. We actually did have just a little cellular signal where we were working from. If we had to continue west a little further, we would not have maintained that cell signal at all. And fortunately, everything that I had set up there was already downloaded to my devices, so I didn't worry about the flight side of it at all. I knew we'd be okay without the network connection. Here's just some more. So this is actually getting back to the populated side of it. We're coming up to a set of railroad tracks, and those railroad tracks are part of the Grand Canyon Railway. So if you ever come to Arizona and you go to Williams, Arizona, you can take a day trip up on a train from Williams to the south rim of the Grand Canyon, which is absolutely amazing. So the tracks that are off to the truck's left are actually for the Grand Canyon Rail. When we were leaving, I took a photo of one of their signs. And as you can see, there is one home out in the middle of nowhere. Like I said, this is getting closer back to civilization in Route 64. But so we spent a lot of truck time getting in. So once we got off the highway, getting into the location is also a challenge. Several weeks ago, the other area that we flew in Coconino County, the off-roading was something else. And if you tried to go in a regular car, you'd rip your oil pan off and probably several other things. So when you get these types of unique jobs and requests from your clients, you need to double check what's the access going to be for you. We know down the road these people will probably be building wonderful homes or ranches or whatever. But in the meantime, until someone starts building in these locations, washboard roads, completely washed out roads. At one point, I was crawling under 5 miles an hour over these rocks that were just protruding everywhere. Geez, I couldn't say protruding this morning. So as we went in, we also made note of things so that when we talked to the property owner, we let him know getting construction vehicles in, grading those roads, all of those things are going to have to happen because the access was not easy for any kind of regular vehicle. And if they were bringing in construction vehicles, there'd need to be a lot of road widening before anyone would be in there. And just one more clip and scene from as we were going along. Just some junked truck sitting off to the side of the road. Does anybody own it? Is it just junked there? Who knows? And, we will find that oftentimes when we're visiting locations throughout Arizona, when we go to shoot ghost towns or we go to other unique locations. You'll just find abandoned vehicles. You'll find abandoned RVs, trailers, you name it. You'll find those out there. So let me close up that QuickTime really quick. I'm going to open Lightroom back up, and we're going to get to the most recent catalog just to give you a quick view of that of the location that we were just flying. Now, I want to talk a little about safety getting out into these locations. What I said previously for our trips into the Grand Staircase Escalante and into Coyote Buttes and into the Vermilion Cliffs National Monument, all of these locations are super remote and sometimes extremely unsafe. We travel, the truck always has 2 small emergency medical kits in it. We keep a lot of epinephrine pens because of my allergies, but also you never know if you run into somebody else, if they might have developed an allergy. We do have warnings about Africanized bees in Arizona, and there was an incident several years ago in the Phoenix area where a man was stung to death. So we do have some hazards. So we carry along those medical kits, we carry along the EPIs. I also carry along a portable generator with me that can power my Airstream as well. That generator can also be used to top off the batteries for the drones or any of the other equipment. We also have sand ladders with us for getting into these locations. And of course, once again, the ham radios for emergency communications. So we always like to know that we're connected. And I don't find that to be overly paranoid because some of these places you get into, it's going to take an awful lot to get you out of. So after we got up to the landowner's location, so we're looking out to the left-hand side. This is close to a 40-acre property. The truck's actually parked right below this shot. And so, this was early to mid-morning, let's see, 9:23 a.m. we got out there. We had actually gotten up at 5:30 in the morning to get everything set, packed, and we made sure that we went over our gear before we headed out. And like I said, I just check over on the comments bar, the chat bar there occasionally, make sure I'm not missing anyone. Now, one of the things that we ran into on this trip up, the wind was supposed to be about 14 miles an hour, and you can't tell from the still image with these little scrub brushes down here, but when I exited the truck, I got blasted by the wind, and the truck door actually slammed back on me. So my intention was to do some more videos for YouTube, for the Patreon channel, and for the Teachable channel. So I did a little video out there, but our intent was to actually video the drone through part of its flight. We scrapped that idea with the strong winds. We needed to get the images for the client. We needed to make sure that we had something to bring back to him so that we weren't going to do another 4-hour round trip in a couple of days' time because we got grounded with the winds. So we were right on the edge of what the Mavic was happy with and was not happy with. The Mavic 2 Pro complained multiple times on the flight, and I haven't done any heavy edits or anything yet for the client, but this is the northwest corner of that location. And so you can actually just follow this dirt road out to its northeast corner, and off in the distance, right along the border of that property, there is someone who does have an RV sitting out there. Like I said, you'll find a lot of remote locations where people will have hunting camps in the middle of nowhere, and they've got their RV parked out there. So this RV was on the right side of the property boundary, so no big deal there. And then just flying along that property boundary and taking some shots out. As you can see, this is a wide open area, and a lot of the high country in Arizona is super windy. So the drone was complaining. It was giving me the wind warning. So we pulled it back from one flight. I landed it, just let everything calm down a little bit, and then started into our shooting again. So moving right on through. Now, before we go out on these locations, by the way, if you're looking way out in the distance here, this dirt track right here is the road. And actually out this way, somewhere out here, this is the wrong image, you could actually see some of those windmills. So let me go back, because I think it was DNG 10. Yeah, let me zoom in here for you real quick. And you might not be able to see this, okay? But off in the distance, these are, hey, Corey, so I have to change my live stream alert to 9. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Corey. I mentioned that in the beginning. We, we don't change the clocks here, and I totally forgot about it when I set up the live stream. So my bad. I am sorry about that one. But yeah, I actually called my sister this morning. I said, "What time is it there?" Because I couldn't remember if it had happened this weekend. But yeah, that's Arizona. Strangely stubborn state that doesn't change the clocks. So winter Mountain Standard Time, summer Pacific Standard Time. Now you can probably not see this too well. There's one little building out here, but there are a ton, absolute ton of windmills out here. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. This might not be translating as well on the live stream, but so I just want to let you know there's this huge wind farm just out to the west of Route 64 on the way to the Grand Canyon. And so that shouldn't be surprising that we ran into wind issues the other day. Where are you going to park a wind farm? Somewhere that's constantly windy. Okay, so let's zoom that back out. So yeah, we did get a full look around the property. There's not a lot to distinguish the property for the property owner when people are looking at these. So do you find you have to download maps before you go to remote sites? Yeah, Corey, I get those things ready. So like on Ground Station Pro, what I do is check everything the night before. I leave Ground Station Pro turned on, but I do turn the iPad off so that when I open up in the field and I open up the iPad, I'm still already logged into Ground Station Pro, so it does show me that last area. On Map Pilot, it actually downloads your base maps for you, and other applications are hit or miss, but this is why you might want to do some of the pre-planning, even if you need to do other work in the field, just to give yourself some reference points, because if you get to a location where there's no cell coverage whatsoever, and you didn't get some reference points before you started, you might be standing in a big, wide open desert area scratching your head going, what do I do now? Am I at the right place? So by the way, this is only halfway south on the border of this property. There's the Nissan Titan out there. So like I said, this is a very large property. Now, one of the other things that we do before we go out to these locations, I don't have a nefarious mind or anything here, but we're driving sometimes hours into the middle of nowhere for a customer. So we like to let people know where we're going, friends or family, that we're going to be out for the day. Because, you know, who knows? We're driving out into the desert with tens of thousands of dollars worth of gear in the back of the truck. Sounds like a great opportunity to pilfer somebody's gear. Now, you've heard about some of the wedding photographer scams and some of the thieves that actually plan around weddings in different popular locations, and they're there to steal photographers' equipment. Well, if I'm driving around in the desert with gear that's more valuable than my truck, that might be interesting to people with people with bad intentions. So we always make sure that folks are aware of where we're going, and we're not just going out there blind. So I never go onto a location without telling someone where I've been. And just to let you know, I have stumbled across some spooky things in the desert. Abandoned buildings that aren't really abandoned and are being used for making illegal things. So I had a scare on one small ghost town building visit years ago, and it changed how I thought about going out into the woods, because back in New England I would just go off on a hike and I wouldn't worry about things like abandoned cabins that might be housing stuff now. But here in Arizona, it's an actual possibility. So making sure people are aware of where you're going is a great safety point as well. Making sure you've got your communications, that you've pre-planned as much as possible, and just looking back over at the chat stream again, so that you want to guarantee your own safety as much as possible. When we do construction sites, you've got the orange vests, you got a hard hat, you've got what's required on those sites. So what's required of a raw land site that requires you 2 hours of driving out to the middle of nowhere? Like I showed on those pretty photos of White Pocket, that's multiple hours to get in there. The only other way that would be quicker is if a helicopter rescue had to come in for you, and you really don't want to call on those guys if you don't have to. But if you say to yourself, I am 4 hours driving time away from hitting pavement in the event I have an emergency, what emergency supplies do I have in the back of the vehicle? And also, what additional gear do I have along with me? Do I have extra props, extra batteries, a second drone body in case something happens? Because this is a big investment in your time getting out to this middle of nowhere location, right? So just arrowing through a little more. So we are at the southwest corner of this property, and you can see the Nissan Titan all the way up there. So this is a huge property. This could be split into several subdivided areas, and even with that, you could still do some really great horse ranches in the area. So this property purchase of our client, this one was very appealing to me, and I let him know the road access into here was much easier than the road access into the other location. So it's going to be great selling points for him. And he told me that someone had already dropped him a note asking the question of, can you see the railroad tracks from this particular property? And the answer is no. By the way, the drone at this moment in these shots is 60 feet above ground level. And I lined this one up because I just wanted to show on the other side of that border that little RV sitting out there. Now, one of the other nice things, which I've shown here on channel before, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it again. I'm just highlighting some of these. These are not all of the images for him. But, and we didn't get to do a 360 for him. The wind speed was just too stupid windy to do the 360s. Yes, I tried to set it up and it was knocking the drone all over. So we had to let that one go. But, when we do these, 9 times out of 10, your GPS or your drone does have GPS built into it. So if you're using something like Lightroom, you're going to get your GPS reference points for where you're shooting. So this is one thing that I like to pass off to the client. They're not putting this up on MLS or anything. This is letting them know, okay, I'm looking around the overall property. Where did these shots take place? So that's what we were doing in this instance for him, just showing him where the shots were taking place. And each of the images is actually labeled northwest corner, northeast corner. And then I also give some guidance shooting toward the southwest corner, shooting toward the north center. So that gives him some reference points in what he wants to present on his property listings for sale. So let me just take a look back on over again. All right, we're doing okay. So once again, sorry about the time thing. So the next time that you get a raw land job or you're going to a new location, maybe make a checklist to yourself for the safety items that you have in your vehicle. And especially if you're going into unknown locations, you should also be a little cautious as well. In the case of some of these properties here, sometimes easements haven't been gotten yet. And sometimes some of these 2-lane roads or simple dirt tracks are crossing a private person's property that's blocking you from getting to the location. So before you just say yes to that phone call of, yeah, you got a 40-acre property, I'll go do it. Go ahead and research it. I research it every time. I always, when people first get in touch through AZ Drone, if you've been over to my website, you see the contact form, and then on that contact form, you let me know what you're looking for. And normally I write people back and I say, can you give me the parcel numbers? Can you give me the address that the owner has given to you? And so I will look these things up and try to get a feel for whether or not we can get into this location easily. The last location, not this one that we just did, but the previous one to that, we had some issues getting in, and Google was not giving us good routing. We followed the Google route to a locked off gate. So then we had to drive miles further north. We found a weird pull off. I zoomed in on the map because I still had some signal there, and we found a couple of parcels that we could cross, and we had to pay attention the whole drive. Is this saying private property or not? So it was a little unnerving because I don't want to violate somebody's private property, and I don't want the drone getting shot down or anything else like that. So doing that double check before heading out is incredibly important, and then making sure that you've got safety gear for yourself, and making sure, if possible, that you have communications. And if you don't have communications out there, then you should probably schedule a call with a friend or family member and tell them, if I'm not back by 4, go ahead and start worrying about me, or whatever the time frame is. So, and if you can leave behind clues like this as well, well, this is where Rich was looking, so we got an idea where he was going to. So zooming this out, by the way, there's Route 64, so we're not that far from it at all. And The other property that we dealt with for that client was actually over in this area, and that was the much rougher ride. And we had a lot of searching to do to get the right roads in. So Google Maps did a horrible job directing us and was trying to make us drive through people's private property. Not what we want to do. And that's not the way to make new friends. So there you go. All right, I'm going to go back over to the library again. So let me just look up in here. Let's grab the text. And as you can tell, I still really like my Lightroom. So, all right, I didn't put it in this library, so we won't show you that one. If you can't tell, lots of other strange things in the library from doing some other 360s, some flights for Airbnb recently, and then some other strange flights. Like I said, we've been doing a lot of raw land lately. I can't remember if I showed this particular stuff to you guys or not. Any tips for showing the scale in these locations? So on that Google map, or on that map in Lightroom, it does on the, let me see, right down here, I don't know if you can see it, but it does say map data 2020, it's Maxar Technologies, and right now we're at the 100-meter view. So now I'm zooming into this, and this is still a hard time on what is the appropriate height level. And this particular property that we were flying has got a lot of ups and downs. So it might be the case that you need to go out and fly a test mission there to give yourself a feel for the terrain. So this is a tough one. You can also break out Google Earth, not Google Maps Online, the Google Earth application. And when you're looking at these locations and you're moving your mouse around, you will get GPS information and you can get elevation information. So it might be the case that you want to do a little bit of that pre-planning with Google Earth setting up in the background for some reference points for yourself as well. Remember, you can draw out polygons on Google Earth, so you can export into multiple formats, and some of those formats can be imported to the flight apps that you're looking for. So, KML files, for Google. There are different file types that you can overlay. So it might be the case that maybe you would like to pre-plan some of your flights, drawing out some polygons on Google Earth and then uploading them to your app of choice. That way you've got some reference in there. But, the final flight on this one, we had preset the flight areas for ourselves, but I left it available for myself to adjust when I got into the field, which is exactly what I did at this particular location. And as you can see, look at this. Whoops, sorry about that. So there's one really buildable site at this location. I'm no survey engineer, but looking around the property, there's one really good area, height of land, has some great views, and then everything drops off all around it, and you get these little canyon things going on here and there. So yeah, let's just take a quick look through some of these. So as you can see, and I don't even think all these are edited, but we already passed off the edits to the client. So where I'm parked, where I'm launched from, is one of the flattest areas in this whole area. So we took the drone down into the area. As you can see, some huge drop-offs in here. And I did do a quick digital elevation model. So this one isn't super remote like the other ones. We do have some homes. This is the Dewey Mayor area, which is near Prescott and Prescott Valley. But most of these places are spread apart ranches. So as you can see, we actually took a walk up to the height of land because this dirt track down here, there's the Titan, this dirt track actually gets really bad in here. So rather than throwing it in four-wheel drive and grinding the truck up against brush and things, which they call Arizona pinstriping, by the way, rather than adding more Arizona pinstriping, we parked the truck, we came up, we set up our launch location. I did some test flights around to determine where I'd like the elevation at, and then I made those changes in Ground Station Pro. But yeah, this is going to be a really interesting location for anyone who chooses to build on this. So you can see the spacing of this. Most of the homes are kept that far apart. So some great views for the potential owners. And also you can see drone photographer and the visual observer right in there as well. So yeah, we're seeing more and more of this remote stuff. And I just wanted to really share with all of you some safety thoughts for when you're doing these. Like I said earlier, mostly everybody we meet are nice, great people, But as people come to understand what drone operators do more and more, the same people who are stealing wedding photo equipment from wedding locations, they might start looking at us as targets as well. And that's, I'm not being extreme here, but if I have to go walking off from the vehicle a half mile or maybe a mile to get set up for what we're doing, and I'm leaving some of the gear locked up in the truck, that's a mighty tempting target for someone who understands the value of what's sitting in the back seat of my vehicle. So keep your safety in mind, keep your communications in mind, and I always have little emergency medical kits in any of my vehicles. I used to be an avid backpacker, spent weeks and months on trails, literally. And so you had to have everything that you needed in a 40-pound pack. When you go off to locations like these and the more remote ones, you should also be thinking about your safety and security in those locations as well. And you can still enjoy the locations you're in and take in that beautiful scenery. These other images aren't mine. These are some things that get sent to me by one of my clients. So I just wanted to scroll up. Okay, here we go. We did keep a couple of these in this library. Just, as one more case in point, you've probably seen these tips for Airbnb too. You know what? I can talk to you about those, Corey. So we'll do that as a upcoming one. No problem. Give me a reminder down in the show notes, would you? All right, so this location you've probably seen before, unless you're new to the channel. So this was our other remote location. This was a long drive in on this road. I want to zoom in on this really quick. This is a nice part of the road. Up this way, as we continued up, there's a hill that goes up, and there's just giant rocks jutting out and protruding. I mean, the truck was bam, 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 and even with it being lifted, I was worried about, scraping something off the bottom. So when you're coming into a location like this is a tough one. This is not a high trafficked area like the one we were just at. That one had some great washboard roads that were 2 vehicles wide. This is a single vehicle wide at best. I don't know how these people got their trailers in unless they didn't care and they just let them kind of get rattled apart. Now in this location, you can see this is much more dense coverage. So we've got all these junipers. The junipers are definitely taller than me, so they're a potential obstruction for your flight. But also, if you start wandering off into this, everything starts looking the same. So you need to keep track of where you've come from and where you're going to if you're flying from the interior of the properties, because sometimes you're going to need to because the property is too big. You might have to break it up into a couple of flights for your visual line of sight and for your safety and security. But yeah, the road in here, this road leaves a lot to be desired. Nobody is coming in with construction equipment on this location overnight. And once we provided this to the property owner, who doesn't live in this state, he's way out of state, but he's buying properties. I'm not sure what it's based on. I need to ask him that question because there seems to be a formula to what he's doing. But so yeah, I just want to give you this flavor of this is the middle of nowhere. It really is. If you were to have an emergency, let's say fall and break a leg or something, I don't even think an ambulance is getting in on parts of these roads. So maybe they've got some high clearance ambulances, who knows. But so make sure that you're planning out before you head out. Check your Google Earth. Get an idea of the locations you're going to be in. And, you can always email that to someone or just let them know over the phone. Hey, this is where I'm going to be today. So, I'll see you tomorrow. When I used to go up to White Pocket regularly, I'd tell people, hey, I'm going to be gone for 4 days. You should expect to hear from me on Tuesday. And they would. All right, everyone, I'm going to wrap this one up. I've got some other videos that I've got to get ready. By the way, before I wrap this up, I'll just show you this. So I was trying to do a video for you guys where, where I'm talking about what we're doing, and then Jody was going to fly the drone. And so me walking out of the house in the morning was super pixelated, but I was just doing it handheld, and that was okay. This still might become part of a video. And then I'm going to close that and open the next one. So I am putting together a video for Patreon and the Teachable channel. And I started this one off. I just wanted to, give people a flavor for here's the area. It was so super windy. And so I'm in a North Face jacket that has 2 layers. It was freezing when we got there in the morning, and it wasn't supposed to be. We had the wind going on. So then I start talking to everyone about where we are, what we're doing. And so I'm still cobbling that together, but keep your eye on the Patreon and Teachable, and you'll see it. Maybe it'll just be on YouTube as well. But so I did put something a little more fun together, but we didn't get to film the flight. We both had to have our eyes on the drone. We were very concerned about the wind. So, make a video for YouTube or get the job done for my client. I choose to get the job done for the client, and he was very happy with the images. So he's already got them up on MLS, and he's already listing that location. All right, everybody. I don't know if you can tell, by the way, I've been under the weather over the weekend, so hoping it's nothing big, but we'll see. And I'll keep you guys up to date. But at the latest case, we'll see you again next week. And maybe we'll see you with some other videos this week. It's all going to depend on the other paying jobs that I've got to do. And I do have a couple things to do. Have a safe start to the week. I hope you all have fun. And go fly something really cool and interesting. Drive off into the middle of nowhere. See what that's like. All right, we'll see you again next week, everyone. Be good. And